Yo, what's up, boys? Today we're ranking all the maps in Delta Force Season 6. This list is based entirely on the attack and defend game mode. I don't play King of the Hill, so I can't really speak on how the maps feel there. I play both infantry and vehicles, and I'd say I'm solid in both roles, so that'll factor into how I rank each map. I'll also point out which maps don't play well for infantry and where they rank if you weren't using vehicles. At the end, I'll show the full tier list that balances both infantry and vehicle play. Before we get into it, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment with your thoughts or future video ideas, and sub if you haven't already. Starting off with Ascension, this is a map I actually enjoy quite a bit, but that's mostly coming from the mindset that I'm going to have some sort of vehicle for the majority of the match, at least up until the last sector. When I'm attacking, I usually grab the battle tank about 90% of the time. I use it to help the team push on the A sector and deal with the AA vehicle, which gives our helicopter a much better time flying around uncontested. Moving into B point, I focus on taking out both the light tank and battle tank, giving my team a huge advantage. They don't have to worry about enemy vehicles at all and can just focus on pushing up against infantry. If my team starts to struggle, I'll switch things up and grab a tank destroyer, using it to handle with infantry that they're struggling with in order to reach the C sector. And once we get up to the tunnels, I'll swap over to an LAV and focus on clearing those tight spaces in the tunnels. The shrapnel shell is just one of the most absurd abilities in the game when you have to deal with them in tight quarters. Going past the C sector up to the last sector of the map, I'll keep the LAV going into it, but honestly, I prefer to switch to infantry here. I feel vehicles are just mid at best on the last point, and you can make a much bigger impact on foot. When I'm defending, I've actually started sniping on the first sector instead of running engineer to deal with the battle tank. Most of the time, the attacking tank drivers don't know what they're doing anyway. They just sit in the back and accomplish practically nothing for the entirety of the map. If the attackers do manage to get past the first point, I'll hop into the battle tank or even the light tank, whichever tank I can get, preferably the battle tank, for B sector to try to farm up around 8k score, just in case we do lose the B sector and have to fall back into the tunnels. That's where you can really dominate on defense when you get an LAV with the shrapnel shells. It is a lot hard to contest C sector when the attacking LAV has to go in and try to destroy the defending LAV. It's quite a challenge. Overall, I think Ascension is probably my second or third favorite map to play. So I'm personally going to put it A tier. If I were playing infantry only though, I'd probably drop it down to C or even D tier. The vehicles just have way too much impact on the game, and infantry just don't have enough cover. It's pretty open. I mean, you really only have 3-ish lanes to attack from. 4 lanes, I guess. It's just not a lot of movability in the map until you get to each sector. And then at that point, you're basically hoping your vehicles can help you push enough to where you can fight some people 1v1. Moving on to Cracked, this map is very team dependent when it comes to how much you're actually going to enjoy the match. When I'm attacking, 9 times out of 10, we ended up steamrolling the enemy team and finishing the game within 7 to 14 minutes. I'd say my average game length on attack Cracked is about 10. It's honestly rare to get a match where the defenders can actually hold their own. But when that happens, I think the map becomes really fun and enjoyable. There are a lot of attacking lanes you can choose from, giving you multiple ways to approach each sector depending on your playstyle. I mostly play infantry here. I'll hop into a vehicle if my team is struggling to push on that final sector. Usually that's enough to secure the win. Now on defense, this map can go one of 2 ways. It's either fun and engaging or a total snooze fest. If the attacking team is full of snipers, the game just drags on forever and puts me to sleep. But if the attacking team are actually pushing and fighting for the A sectors and the B sectors relentlessly, then this map becomes genuinely enjoyable. With all that said, I'm going to be putting Cracked in probably the B tier for now. I think it's going to end up here. If the enemy can't get a push, it just gets too boring. And if I'm attacking, the game just ends too fast for me to really get much out of the game. When both sides are competitive, it's a solid and fun map that if every game was competitive, it would definitely be A or S. But the fact of the matter is it's not. Most games are just one-sided, which is unfortunately going to make it B tier. I'd say this is B tier for both infantry and even vehicle players. If you want to play vehicles, you can get a battle tank or a light tank if you're on defense. I think they're pretty useless up until C sector, that's where I think you'll get the most value out of a vehicle. If you're that type of player. But I generally just stick with infantry here. And that's where I'm going to leave cracked for now. Now on to Cyclone. I'll be honest, I hate this map. I don't think I've ever genuinely had fun playing on it, except for maybe the first time, just because it was new and fresh. After the first or second match, there was a long stretch where I would instantly leave every Cyclone game, no matter what. The only reason I came back to it was in Season 6 when they added jets. And even with that addition, this map is still horrible. I could go on and on about the miserable experience Cyclone is, but I'll try to sum it up quickly. The matches last way too long for how little action you actually get throughout the game. A sector is my favorite part of the map. Even then, on defense, it takes forever to win. Every full hold A sector game feels like a minimum of 15 to 16 minutes, and that's just for one sector. And I'm going to mainly focus on defense here because that's where I've spent probably 80% of my time on this map. If I'm on attack, I steamroll. And by steamroll, I mean it still takes me 15 to 20 minutes to just go through A, B, C, D, and E. But anyway, back to the defense part. If you don't hold A, the map just slows down even more, all the way through D sector. By the time you get to D and E, the match is going to turn into a 30 to 45 minute slow snail pace game. And it's just not fun. Basically, Cyclone is way too big, way too slow, and not fun for me, whether I'm attacking or defending. If the game ever introduced map bans, this would be the first map I'd ban without question. I'd honestly rather have Night Trenchline reintroduced and see Cyclone removed completely. With all that said, F. By far worst map in the game. Moving on to the newly introduced Season 6 map, Vault. They recently made some changes to make attacking a bit easier, mainly by having the defenders spawn farther back at the start and by shrinking the out of bounds area for defense. I think those are good adjustments, but honestly not enough. When I'm playing infantry or defense, I don't think I've ever been pushed back to the B sector. The only times I've ever seen B or C are when I'm flying a jet over A sector. Even then, I'd say 70% of the times we still full hold A if I'm flying a jet. That's how rarely the attackers actually get through. If I'm on attack, I usually roll with either the LAV or the jet. Usually I want to go with the LAV here so I can apply enough pressure with it. Even with the jet, I can make stuff happen, but generally I'm more of a LAV person on attack side. Once we get to B sector, if I'm in a jet, I'll just hand it off to one of my teammates to take because I think the jet is pretty, in my hands, it's useless on B sector. I think the buildings just give too much cover to infantry to actually do anything with. You could attack the vehicles, but once they're off the map, I'm usually just doing nothing. So I'll switch to a LAV or a tank destroyer, whichever's up. B sector is definitely better than A in my opinion, but it still has issues. There are just so many ratty little spots people can hide in or drop beacons, which turns the game into constant back and forth objective trading. It's slightly better for infantry, I'll give it that, but not by much. C sector, though, that's where the map actually shines. It plays really well for both infantry and vehicles. It can be a bit tough for attackers to push up the hill at the beginning, but there are some sneaky flanks on the far west that a lot of players don't seem to know about. If your team still has a TD or LAV alive, they can use that flank to open up space for everybody to go up the hill and push C1. Despite all that, I don't really get to play C sector much. Just like Cyclone, most of my matches on this map are spent stuck defending A, which gets really boring after a while. So for now, it's better than Cyclone, but I'm just going to leave it at D tier. It might get moved up to C, but at the moment, I'm really not a fan of Vault, and I'm just going to leave it here in D. Next up is Knife Edge. Back when this map was first introduced, I hated it. I could not stand how it played, but over time, it's actually become one of my favorite maps in the game. That said, playing defense on A sector is still boring. Honestly, I'd rather just concede A entirely and just move on to the B sector. Most of the time on defense, the team is just sitting pushed up on the out of bounds line, waiting for attackers to peek, which eventually leads to people standing still, doing nothing, or just leaving the match entirely. If they change the out of bounds timer from 5 seconds to 10, I think this map would be perfect. That one tweak alone would fix a lot of the pacing issues on A and stop defenders from just playing the waiting game, and you could actually push up and make some plays in their spawn. As for the rest of the map, both sides are fun and engaging once you actually understand the layout. Knife Edge can feel unintuitive and confusing when you first start playing it, but once you learn the flow, it's honestly one of the best. It is the best infantry map in the game. Quick tip for attackers on the final sector: there's a zip line inside the elevators that take you all the way to the top of the map, letting you flank around instead of trying to brute force your way through those 2 hallways that are always filled with lunar arrows, grenades, and incendiary fire. If you use it, you'll save a lot of frustration and you can actually grab the C1 or C2 point. I'm going to put Knife Edge at the highest of A. It would easily be S tier for me if they change the out of bounds timer to 10 seconds. I honestly feel like that one change could help solve the defense A issue. I know a lot of people get stuck spawn trapped. Me personally, I don't think I've ever been spawn trapped on Knife Edge. Maybe when it first got introduced and I didn't know the layout of the map, yes. But like in the last, I don't know, 5 months, I've never been spawn trapped. I haven't had an issue. Honestly, I wouldn't blame anybody for ranking Knife Edge in S tier. I'm just going to leave it at A. It would be S if they changed the out of bounds timer. And now my favorite map in the game, Shafted. Just kidding, I hate this map. Like Knife Edge, this one suffers from the 5-second out of bounds timer. If they change that to 10 seconds, I think this map would actually jump up multiple spots in my rankings. Most of my Shafted games end up turning into spawn camping sessions, either on A or B sector. You're just sitting there waiting for people to peek, and if they're too scared to move, it gets frustrating and boring really fast. C sector is a bit better for defense, but honestly, I rarely even get pushed that far. On attack, the map starts off fine. A sector is actually enjoyable to play, but once you move into B and C, everything just falls apart. There are essentially 3 lanes you can push: the left side, the underground, which I think is the best option, and the right side, where you might get lucky and be able to push through with your team if the defenders are just bad. The underground flank is by far the most consistent way to make progress as a team. There's also a 4th option that people don't know about. If you call in an ATV or keep one from A sector, you can position it right and climb over the crates in the middle. But I usually don't call in my points to set up a ATV there. I'll either use the one from A sector or use somebody else's points to call it in and set it up for them. You can also wall ride the ATV over the crates. Like right as soon as the point switches, I usually go for that wall ride because the defense aren't expecting it usually. If they're set up and already there, if they had ample amount of time to set up, they can counter you super easily. So it's kind of like, it's a bit of a risk to go for the wall ride. But if we switch sides and the timer ticks down to 5 really fast, I'll just gun it and go for it. There's also a Tempest wall climb that you can do on the crates. If you go to the far left position just right, you can use your dash to climb up the crates, mantle, and get over the crates. It's pretty tricky to do. Once you get the hang of it, it becomes a little bit easier, but it's definitely one of the more tricky techs in the game. It's a lot easier to do on the defensive side than on the attack side. If the defenders are watching those areas, I will just move underground and try to make space from there. But even when you do, it's tough to get your team to actually push in. And that's where most of my frustration starts to set in. And honestly, that's not even the worst part of this map. The real problem is C sector. There are 3 choke points that the defense can hold, and it just turns into fucking gadget span. Like grenades, rockets, discs, lunar arrows. It's just a disaster. It pretty much makes it impossible for the attackers to move. You basically have to hope the defenders are bad and brute force your way through one of the chokeholds. Usually I try to go for the right side. I think the right side is the easiest to push. You can also call in a guided missiles to clear out the middle and right side. There's a spot that you can hit, clears out both the middle and right side. But I've had games where I've called it in and the middle and right are completely clear and my team still, for whatever reason, refuses to push up. Like, I don't understand. Regardless, that is another way. And if your team is halfway decent, you can get through and you can fight for the C objective. Just overall, C sector is a spam field nightmare. With little to no counterplay. If Cyclone didn't exist, Shafted would easily be F tier, but Cyclone holds that crown, so Shafted is going to D tier. If they change the out of bounds timer to 10 seconds, I could maybe bump it up to B. But the C sector attack is so bad that even with the 10 seconds, it might just settle on C. But As it stands now, it's just D tier. I think I'd rather play Fault over Shafted, but it's pretty close. They're both pretty bad. All right, moving on to Threshold. In a perfect world, this map is pretty good. It would be up in the B or A tier, in my opinion, if like both teams are balanced. But we just don't live in that world. And 9 times out of 10, okay, I won't say 9 times. I'd say 7 times out of 10, if I'm defending, we are full holding them on a spawn trapping them. They can't move, they can't do anything. We always have full control, and it's just kind of boring. If they do get past it, you can just move into like an LAV and completely shut that down. You kind of have to handicap yourself on defense in order to give them a chance if they don't know what they're doing. If they have people who know how to use the tank destroyer or the heli, then you will have to try to use the LAV to full hold the B2 sector, which leads me, if I'm attacking on this map, these threshold matches for me last 5 to 7 minutes. If I get a game that lasts longer than that, it's once every 2 weeks, maybe, that I get a game that lasts longer than 7 minutes. Even then, most of the time, it's just speedrunning all the way through. Like every map in this game, most of my time is spent playing defense, waiting for the enemy to push. And that's really is what gonna hold Threshold back for me. I'm gonna place it C tier. I think for infantry, it's very good. I think for vehicles, it's good as well. I think it's like a pretty mid map. I think it is a C tier map with how everything is as of right now. If teams were competitive and they had at least one squad who knew what they're doing both on attack and defense, I think you could easily bump this to B or A. But the fact of the matter is most people don't know what they're doing. It becomes boring. I speed run through attack. I wait 15 minutes to spawn trap them at A, or I just completely neuter them on B sector with an LAV. I literally have to handicap myself in order not to get bored on defense, is essentially what this map comes down to. I just have to hope there's like one or two players who know what they're doing that can like provide a challenge. And that's why it's gonna stay in C tier for me right now. The most is pretty mid. Okay, moving on to Trainwreck. This suffers from the same problem that Ascension faces. This map is just utterly garbage for infantry players, but pretty good for vehicle players. So me personally, I always run a vehicle, except on A point. If I'm attacking, I just play recon, go in the back, flank, get A really quick. And then once we switch to B sector, I go to try and grab the tank destroyer. And then each sector, you get a tank destroyer on Trainwreck, which I think is absurd. It makes this map super attack sided. 95% of my Trainwreck attack games ends up with the enemy team having 10 to 15 players left by the end of it. It's always a complete stomp. For defense, I'm usually playing Aluru, taking out the tanks, and just trying to get as many points as I can to get a tank destroyer, just so I can end the game faster. I think defensively, Trainwreck kind of sucks until you get to B sector. And then on B sector, I also try to grab a tank destroyer. Infantry is so terrible on this map that I don't want to be anywhere except a vehicle. I think it's pretty garbage. For me personally, like infantry F tier, but like overall as a vehicle player, it's B tier, if I'm going to be honest. You know, it might be C tier for the simple fact that if I'm playing attack, all my games just end with people leaving, simply because they just cannot deal with the tank destroyers. If I didn't have levers, this would definitely be B. I think defense is quite boring, and literally the goal for defending A is to get the tank destroyer, or if you just concede the point, then you grab the TD. And if you don't get that, if you get pushed back, you get the LAV. And then if you get all the way to the D, which is very rare, the game is actually pretty fun. Even like I think infantry on D point is significantly better than A, B, and C, just because you won't have to deal with as many vehicles if you get to like a late stage Trainwreck game. With all that said, I'm gonna leave it at C. I think Threshold's better. I wish there was a way. I think they need to get rid of the tank destroyer respawning every sector. I think Trainwreck, you should only have be able to have one tank destroyer up at all times. You shouldn't be allowed to get a new one every sector. I think it just makes attacking overpowered in a pub lobby, and it's pretty oppressive. All right, last up, and certainly not least, is Trench Lines, which is my favorite map in the game. So right off the bat, you know this is S tier. It's a great attack map. It's a great defensive map. The problems I have with other maps on defense is that A point is usually boring, or just like at any point it's boring, but not on trench lines. The 10 seconds lets you maneuver into their spawn and kill them if they're just hiding back there. If you get to B sector, I think B sector is one of the most fun areas of the map. I think just top to bottom, this map is the best. The only issue that I could possibly come up with is that B sector performance just nukes my FPS. Other than that, I love this map. I think it's very competitive. Even on attack, like a steamroll still lasts me like a good 15-ish minutes, where I'm getting high score. If the game lasts longer, I have potential to get huge games, both on attack and defense. My current personal record is 216. Video I will link in the description if you want to watch that. 216 on defense. My previous personal best was 191. I got that on attack. I think this map is just set up to give you a platform to go for high kills. If you want to use vehicles, you can. I think B sector is just terrible and unusable for vehicles. Even I see people like Wormy use the battle tank with great success, but personally I would stick to infantry. I usually just strictly stay infantry for the entirety of the map, unless we're absolutely getting steamrolled. Then I'll hop into a TD like on D sector or E, if things are that dire. Man, I don't know how else to explain, but I really love how the gunplay works in this map. I don't think it's too fast paced. I think it is just enough. You have so many ways to flank, so many ways to go about each sector. It just gives you a lot of options, and that's why I really enjoy it. I wish they brought back Trench Knight. I know the visibility was terrible, but give me another option just to play this map, even if it's Night Trench, which I would rank B tier, simply because you can't see shit. But yeah, I really can't say enough good things about Trench Lines. I love this map, and I wish I got it more. So with that, that is the complete tier list for season 6. I will be doing another one next season, probably towards the end, just so I have enough games played on the new map. Let me know what you guys think. What are your favorite maps? Do you think Knife Edge should be S? Do you think it should be lower? Do you think Trench is S? Do you think Cyclone should be not F tier? Maybe Cyclone is your favorite map. Tell me why. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for watching. See ya.